I work at a gas station in the backwoods of Tennessee, and that's where this happened. Last night when I clocked in at 8 p.m., the store was completely dead. I figured it was going to be a pretty easy night because the road this station is on is not a main road. It used to be until about a decade ago when the new freeway was built. This led basically every business that was here to pack up and leave their old building abandoned. Thanks to this, there are a lot of abandoned buildings on this stretch of road that local squatters tend to claim as their own. Anyway, at around 11 p.m., I only had an hour of my shift left, and I figured I should actually get some work done instead of just sitting around and doing nothing. I'm 18, and I work the shift alone, which is nice because it means I can do pretty much whatever I want, as long as I get what I need to get done finished. I noticed we were almost out of barbecue chips, and so I'd need to go get them from our storage space, which is for some reason in the basement of the station. I've always hated going down there because it gives me the creeps. Why the owner decided to store everything down there is beyond my comprehension. I got about halfway down the steps before something fell on the other side of the room, and it sounded like footsteps coming my way. I sprinted up the stairs and locked the door to the basement, panicking like a madman the entire time. I went behind the counter to the store computer so I could check the security cameras. I flicked over to the one that looks into the basement, and there was this guy just standing there, smiling up into the camera. He had a look of absolute insanity in his eyes, but he didn't look like the average junkie in the area. He was clean-shaven and dressed in what looked to be jeans and a button-up of some kind. Honestly, if he'd walked into the store, I wouldn't have batted an eye. But because he was down there, and he was just looking into the camera smiling, it shook me to my core. I called the store owner, and at first he was pretty mad that I called him in the middle of the night. But once he heard how freaked out I was, his tone changed. He told me he'd be there in 15 minutes and to lock the main door to the store and make sure the man didn't go anywhere. I asked if I should call the police, but for some reason he didn't want me to do that just yet. I locked the entrance to the gas station and went back to looking at the security camera. The man was still there, just smiling up at me. About 3 or so minutes of him staring at me later, he walked out of view of the camera. My boss showed up soon after, armed with a shotgun, and when I let him inside, he immediately went to the basement. I followed because it felt safer with another person, but we didn't find anything. My boss ultimately chalked this up to me being tired and hallucinating the man, but I know what I saw. This has me scared shitless as I clock back into work in a few hours, and I'm really dreading it. I was there for 3 years. The station had an auto shop attached, but it was rarely needed at night, so I typically just dealt with people coming in for gas. Occasionally, I'd be asked to work on a car overnight from the day shift. One time, I found several bags of heroin leaking out from the driver's seat. I was nervous the owners would know I saw it, so I stuffed the bags back in. The station was out on a country road, so the types of customers I generally served were truckers or farmers, or the random couple driving home from a date. However, there were the anomalies. The car accidents. I saw a drunk driver step out of a blazing inferno and die in the middle of the road. One time, I served gas to someone who was being chased by the police. Of course, I didn't know that at the time. I just thought he was in a hurry. I've also been robbed at gunpoint, twice. It was the same 2 ski-masked guys, too. They just took turns speaking between the 2 incidents. Then there was the time an old guy drove up, got out of his car, and died of a heart attack 2 steps later. Those incidents were normal, or at least understandable, explainable. But there was one night something unexplainable happened. It was shortly after 3 a.m. when headlights drove in with a thin trail of smoke coming from under the hood of the car. The inside of the windows were all fogged up, so I couldn't really see the interior or the occupants. The car drove past the station and right to the auto shop. The lights weren't even on inside, but the headlights lit it up. I went to greet the driver and flipped on the overhead lights of the shop, but they came on weak and dim. The driver's side door opened as I approached, and I was immediately hit with the stench of old, damp cloth and dust. A middle-aged man got out uneasily, like his knees were made of twigs. He wore one of those black Quaker hats with dark hair spiking from under it, and a graying goatee. The man's face was covered in lines and wrinkles, and his eyes sunk into his head. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Check the oil, check the engine," he choked out and walked past me, fumbling out an old box of matches. The passenger door closed, and a middle-aged woman stood there. She had thick, dark hair that looked like it was greased through with gel and matted to her head. An uneven set of bangs cut across her forehead. The woman carried the same sunken-in eyes as the man, but her face was covered in days-old makeup. Rosy cheeks, blue eyeliner, red lipstick. Even through the smearing, you could tell it was applied with heavy exaggeration. The woman smiled at me, but I wish she hadn't. Her teeth were dirty orange and speckled with black dots. Her gums were dark gray. Her lips stretched and curved downward like a catfish. It was a strange and frightening smile, like it was pulled and stretched over a screaming face. The woman began speaking to me, but she spoke so softly I couldn't hear her at first. I kept leaning forward, trying to get a better ear. But the closer I got, the further her voice sounded. Then, we were only inches from each other's faces. Her breath was rancid as she spoke, and I finally heard what she was saying. "Don't go in the car." The woman pulled back, and I saw the scream behind the smile in her eyes. "Joan!" The driver was outside of the auto shop, lighting up a home-rolled cigarette. The woman, Joan, followed him. She looked back, continuing to smile, but her eyes told a story of desperation and horror. They gave me chills, and I was happy the two were going to wait outside. I watched the strange couple walk down to the edge of the gas station, where it made up the corner of a quiet, country intersection. I turned to the car, not really sure what to do. After I couldn't get under the hood, I figured there was a release latch under the steering wheel. I went to the driver's side door and saw the window was down. I leaned in through the window and searched and fumbled until I found a latch. I flicked it open and saw the hood pop up. As I was pulling myself out, a thought struck me. The window was up when the man drove in, and it was up when he walked off. How did it get down? Then my eyes caught the rearview mirror, and what was in the back seat. There was a little boy staring at me. He sat calmly in the middle seat, with his seatbelt on. He had a strange, swirling facial scar that reminded me of a boy I went to grade school with named Johnny Watkins. He'd been attacked by a dog when he was little, and large portions of his face were horrendously scarred. That's what this boy looked like, and he had something that looked like mud and dirt smeared around his mouth and chin. The same smears on his hands and wrists. The boy wore old, dirty overalls and a flannel shirt underneath. His eyes were locked on me. They carried an accusatory glare, like he was catching me stealing. "Hey, buddy," I quickly blurted out. "I'm just checking the engine, then I'll get you and your parents on the way." The boy stared back, his brow furrowed at the center angrily. "They're not my parents," he croaked out. Then he started to make a strange sound. I couldn't tell what it was at first, but then it became clear. The boy was laughing in his own odd way. It was like his breath was hitching up repeatedly during the inhale. I didn't know what to do or say, so I pulled myself out of the window and made my way to the hood. I looked out and saw Joan and the man were still at the corner, smoking and arguing. At the hood, I was greeted with a cloud of smoke. When I stared down at the engine, I had no idea what to make of it. It looked foreign, but also homemade. It was all connected and had metal plates fastened around it, protecting parts of the wiring and cables so it was next to impossible to see what was wrong. I honestly didn't know what the hell I was looking at, but I managed to find what looked like a small handle for a dipstick, and I twisted and pulled it out. It was for the oil. I cleaned it, put it back in, and pulled it to inspect. Basically dry. The little oil at the end felt gritty. It needed a change. The car was parked over our lift, so I didn't have to get in to move it. But I couldn't leave the kid inside. He had to get out. Safety precautions and all. I went back to the driver's side window, but the window was back up again. I tried to open the door, but it was locked. I went to the passenger side and found it to be locked too. I peered in through the dirty windows to try to signal to the boy to open the door, but the back seat was empty. The entire car was empty. The boy was gone. The only explanation I could come up with was that the back seats of the car pulled down and allowed access to the trunk. So I checked the trunk, but it was also locked. I knocked on it, trying to get the boy's attention if he was inside, but nothing came back. I looked outside, but I couldn't see the man or Joan. I was confused and nervous, and all I could think to do was explain that our lift wasn't working, so they'd need to get their oil changed at another shop in the next few days, and I'd send them on their way. A loud clunking noise made me jump. On the other side of the garage, a loose wrench was on the ground. I walked over to it and picked it up. It had a small child-sized, muddy handprint on it. And suddenly, the boy's laugh echoed out from somewhere in the garage. I raised the wrench to swing, but there was nothing to swing at. The loud metal rattling of the front retracting door slamming shut made me yell. Then, the retracting metal doors at the back slammed shut too. At this point, I figured the kid was messing with me, so I called out to him, telling him playtime was over and to come on out. Then, the lights went out. The garage was completely black. Not a single window could be seen. I tried to open the front metal gate, but it wouldn't budge, like it was welded shut. More metal tools clanged against the ground. One slammed against the metal door right beside my head, and another. The boy's hitched laughter croaked from somewhere in the dark of the shop. I couldn't see anything, but I knew the layout of the garage inside out and backwards. There was a flashlight on the far end of the wall to my right. There were shelves along the wall and a wide workbench I could follow. I moved along the metal door to the wall and found the edge of the bench. The boy's laughter got louder and louder, echoing through the garage. It no longer sounded human, and the source of the laughter was getting closer to me. With it, I felt a hot, rotten breath assaulting my nostrils. Then, the boy started repeating, "I'm gonna find ya, I'm gonna find ya." My foot hit what felt like a ratchet wrench, which loudly skittered across the metal grating on the floor. "Was that you?" the boy squealed out. Realizing I still had the wrench in my hands I first picked up, I threw it across the garage, hoping to hit the back wall and cause a distraction. It left my hand, but it never landed. "There you are," the voice called out through laughter. Something shuffled behind me. I hit the end of the bench and reached up, knocking over multiple tools and causing a series of loud crashes. But I didn't care. I felt the flashlight grip and turned it on, spinning and pointing the light behind me. But I wish I hadn't. The boy was only 2 feet away. I only saw his face for a moment, but that was more than enough. The boy's facial scar had unraveled, like layers of extra skin in some strange face scarf covering. Only the fleshy layers were actually attached to him and contained rows of needle-like teeth on the inside. When the skin flap opened, it tripled the original diameter of his mouth. I screamed and fell backward. I expected to hit the ground and immediately have the boy's frightening mouth biting down on my face or neck, but I hit the pavement outside the garage instead. The lights of the gas station poured over me. I looked back into the garage. The lights were on. The metal door was open. The car was still and silent. The windows closed and clear. Footsteps approached behind me. I scrambled up and turned to see Joan and the man had returned. He flicked his cigarette butt and approached me and mumbled, "How much?" I couldn't speak. My lower jaw moved, but all I could stammer out was, "Don't worry about it." The man shrugged and walked back to the car. I turned and found Joan there, staring up at me. She was whispering something quickly and repeatedly. I leaned in and heard it clearly. "You should have listened. You should have listened. You should have listened." The man called out from the car, snapping Joan back to him. Still smiling, she shook her head at me, tears rolling down her cheeks in dark smears. Then she walked back to the car and got inside. They started the vehicle and drove past me. The windows were no longer blurred by fog, so I could see inside clearly. I saw the man staring straight ahead, Joan sitting passenger beside him, smiling out at me with worried eyes. Then I saw the back seat. It was empty. The boy was gone. I was so afraid I locked the garage and the gas station, checked my car, then got in and drove for an hour before stopping. I called my boss and told him I was violently ill and had to lock up early. He was less than impressed, but I didn't care. I couldn't go back there. And I didn't. I gave my 2 weeks and called in sick for each shift. I never went back to the garage and tried to avoid gas stations at night. But it's not just that. Now, whenever I hear someone laugh, I hear that boy's laughter. That same odd upward hitch. No matter the person, every giggle or cackle comes out the same. It's been happening more and more. It feels like the flu that starts slow and takes its time weakening your immune system before leveling you out. And then tonight, something else happened. I came home and there was a small, muddy handprint on the door handle of my apartment. And there was one on the inside, too.